Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today, as you all can see, we have a full head of hair and my client challenged me today to braid her hair, that is, for she was actually going on maternity leave to have her baby, so she wanted her hair braided in preparations for that. However, the twist to this is we are not adding braiding here because, as you can see, her hair is really thick. And today's style is some all back cornrows with a type of goddess or boho effect, right? And firstly, what you would want to do with natural hair in this amount is detangle your hair. You want to make sure your hair is product free, that is a first, clean and detangle. And the reason for that is you want to make sure that the hair is much more manageable when you start to braid. Not only to mention manageable, but you also want to make sure that your hair is fully detangled and free from any knots or sometimes waves. But as you can see, I did not entirely blow out her hair straight. We did not want to apply too much heat to her hair. It was simply to allow us to be able to detangle her hair and part her hair much easier. Now, the only thing that she did do is slick down her edges because she prefers a certain amount of leave out. So she did slick down a certain amount of edges, and that was her preference, which we are fine with. Now, the first thing that I like to do is, no matter what braiding style that I'm doing, I like to start with a fresh middle part. And this just helps me divide the hair into half to make it much more manageable, especially when you have a full head of hair like this. And we are going to do our first two braids is gonna be like an X or a crisscross braid. So what I like to do is start by parting out a good portion that is sufficient enough for two braids going back. And in order to have clean parts, after I make my first draft of a part, I like to go over my path with the product that I'm going to braid her hair with, and that helps me neaten up that part really well. What I further did with that section is I parted it into two first, going across, and then I parted the second half into two braids or sectioned for two braids. Allow that first section to be pinned up, and then I went ahead and part the top layer to begin my braiding. And what you would like to do is make sure that the hair has product on the sides. And what you are essentially doing is molding that hair. While I begin that braiding process, this is a process that we are not adding any type of braiding here. We are simply using her natural hair. And as I'm braiding, my fingers are running through the rest of the hair to detangle the rest of the hair as we go along. And I did start my first two braids on the top before I went and crisscrossed that braid because we wanted our foundation braids to be well. And as you can see, this is what the braid looks like. So I am going to take that first left braid and make an X in the middle and allow it to be connected to the second braid. It's not going to be connected to the first braid, but it is going to be connected to that second braid. And as I braid down, I am taking out some hair and pinning that. I got some trouble to pin, as you can see. And I did pin the hair as I started to have some leave out, and this is what we're going to curl at the end. Our next braid was sort of a zigzag braid, but more in a box form versus sharp zigzag type of pattern. And I did start with a simple straight back part, and what I am doing is I am sectioning the hair into sections. So I am going to section that first section and braid going across. I'm gonna take my time and braid. Remember, we are braiding not necessarily on the hairline but close to the hairline, so you don't want to have too much pulling and tugging on the hairline. We don't want to pull out her hair, right? I am parting all the way across again, and as I am parting, I am molding the hair with that product. You want to make sure and mold your hair very effectively with your product, and this is going to be your base of making sure that your hair is completely frizz free. And because we are not adding braiding hair to this process, her natural hair is more or less entirely exposed because the braiding hair tends to cover your natural hair. So we want to make sure that her hair is frizz free, and she keeps this in her hair during labor and even after for a little while to allow herself to allow the stress of having to comb your hair to be off her mind. And after about 4 rotations of going back and forth with that zigzag type of braid, but as we say, we're doing it in a box, I then continued braiding down into the natural braid formation, which is going all the way down. And as you can see, once I'm finished with the braid down, I start pulling out my leave outs as we did previously. The amount of leave outs you choose to have is entirely up to you. However, when it comes to braiding natural hair, there are a few things that we need to take into consideration when braiding natural hair, or natural hair without adding any braiding hair that is to the process. One of which is hair prep. You always want to start with clean, well moisturized hair. You can use a light leave-in conditioner, but as a braider, I don't recommend applying any product to your hair before your braiding service, because what tends to happen is when we apply that braiding gel or that braiding moisturizer, some of them leaves a white flakiness to your hair, and you don't want to have that in your hair after you've braided your hair and have that dried out, and then you're walking around with flakes dropping from your hair. So you want to keep that in mind. Another thing is making sure you detangle thoroughly. Now you see why it was so important for us to blow dry that hair at the beginning. Blow dry and detangle, that is, the hair at the beginning of the process, because as we begin to braid down, you would have seen previously that my hands started getting stuck. So what you do want to do is, as you braid down, you run your fingers through the hair to ensure that you keep the hair detangled throughout, which makes it easier for you and for your client or yourself if you're braiding your hair yourself. The next thing is to, like we said, detangle thoroughly. You can use a wide tooth comb, a detangling brush, and in our case we used a detangling brush as well as the blow dryer to have a much smoother finish. And as I stated before, sectioning the hair is very important. And as you would have seen in the beginning, I sectioned my client's hair into half. So 2 parts, which made it much more manageable for me to part her hair and see what I was working with. And you could section your client's hair or your hair into how many parts you choose. Just know that how many ever parts you choose, just make sure that each side is evened off. If you are doing simple rollbacks or if you are doing pattern, your sections will differ based upon what you want to pattern your hair into. The next thing is to choose the right products. Now, not all braiding gels agrees with everyone's scalp. Not also to mention that each braiding gel will give you a different type of hold based on your hair texture. So you also want to take that into consideration. When I combed my client's hair, I used a simple braiding gel that agrees with her hair because I've combed her hair already. And that braiding gel is Shine and Jam. That is the orange container, and that agreed well with her scalp and her hair. So that is the one that we went with. A lot of braiding gels tend to give clients scalp issues, and this is one of the things that you want to stay clear of. You want to make sure and assess your client. Also, some braiding gels tend to leave your hair really white. It does leave a certain type of white residue to your hair. So you also want to bear that in mind. Now, as you would see with this braid, it is much bigger than the first one that we did, like this. But our client sent us an inspo pic, and this is how she wanted it done, whereas it was a pattern in her hair. So not all the braids are gonna be entirely the same size because we were going for a pattern. The next thing that you want to take into consideration when braiding natural hair without braiding hair is to keep even tension. When you apply even and gentle tension throughout the braid, what this does is it avoids putting too much stress on your roots and on your scalp. So this will help reduce scalp tension and avoid breakage of the hair. And this is one of the things that you really want to take into consideration when braiding natural hair. We want clients with healthy hair even after you've braided their hair. You don't want a client for just the style of it. You also want your clients to have healthy hair. The next thing is to seal the ends of your braids as you go along. However, for this style that we did, we are going for a boho effect. So at the end of the braid, we did not entirely seal it off. We did put a rubber band because we do want a curl effect at the end of the braid. So we did not entirely seal it off. And sealing off the hair means sometimes adding a bit of styling product. Like I said just now or previously, you would notice that at the end of the braid, we did have leave out, and we are going to add a mousse or a curl cream to her hair at the end of her session. So you want to bear that in mind. Depending on the style that you choose to do, you want to make sure that you apply the right product for your client's hair texture. And as you can see, my client has really soft hair, curly hair that is, so we do want to apply some type of curl mousse or curl cream to her leave out at the end. And a lot of the braids hair was very smooth, and her hair in itself was really manageable for me to braid. The reason for that was because of our prep at the beginning of the session. And also, one of the things that you want to do as you are finishing up braiding your hair is you want to apply mousse to the top of your hair. And what this is going to do is just seal any type of flyaways that you have that the product would have potentially missed during the braiding process, which is very little. But girls with curly hair, we want to take that into consideration because our hair tends to frizz a lot, and in order to minimize that frizz, you want to make sure you apply the right products for your hair texture. They are light mousses and they are much more heavier mousses that you can use for your hair. And this was the finished product of her braiding hair, or that braiding process, and her hair was beautifully done. As you can see, our client was really satisfied. I'm just slicking down her edges, slicking down that side hair because we did not want to braid it. And I simply used some curl product to just curl those 2 hair strands in the front. I did go over with the mousse because I did want to seal it off. And as you can see, I did finger curl the balance of her hair. So I hope you all enjoyed this process and learned from this process. If there's anything more that you would like me to touch on my channel, please feel free to let me know. I hope you all really enjoyed this session. I enjoyed this session with you all, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.